You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is August 5th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region, and the news from a liberty perspective. And today, what we have is this nonstop news. It seems like every day there's something to talk about, and recently, with elections and everything else, it's been a lot of talk about Democratic Socialists of America and a lot of the different policy positions that they take and how they're playing out in society. So we're going to touch on a few of those things, and we're going to kick off the show talking about the Corey Ruiz shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, because it is suspiciously like George Floyd 2.0, you might call it, and roughly in the same region too. So it's kind of has some eerie parallels. But also the Democrats are getting pretty alarmed about the DSA as well. In fact, Bill Maher had quite a piece on it this last week, and so we're going to kind of watch the alarmism that's taking place in the Democrat Party right now. And like I said, for our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, we'll get into kind of a funny exchange between Robbie Suave and Lindsey Granger on The Hills Rising, which is kind of like a libertarian taking on essentially a DSA proponent.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty appropriate
Yeah.
for this
A
show.
libertarian taking on a communist. Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So, anyways, those are some of the topics we're going to do. But before we get into anything, let me introduce you to our panel. With us, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. And oh, by the way, too, I just wanted to let you know we just wrapped up our state fair booth last week, and me and Leon did go. So,
We
we
did.
got to talk to a few people. We argued with some teachers, and it's pretty hard for a libertarian these days not to argue with teachers. By the way, if you're in a classroom and you're arguing with a teacher, there's a chance you might be a libertarian. Always push back on those authority figures. But anyways,
Yes.
so we had a fun time there and got to meet a few people. So
We
anyways,
did. Yes.
yeah, so next time the libertarian booth is up, we'll let you know about it, and hopefully we'll have a chance to sit in and meet some of the people out there again. Um, so let's get into our quote of the day, and that's where we always try and find some liberty related quote and something that is close to what we're going to be talking about. And I think this one kind of is going to hit the mark in some ways. It is Ludwig von Mises, and he's talking about the proper role of police in a society. And I think there's a little bit of nuance to this quote, and it'll help us, I think, as we discuss some of the DSA's ideas on policing. He said, the aim of all struggles for liberty is to keep in bounds the armed defenders of peace, the governors and their constables. And so I think, what he's getting to the point here is that, look, if you're going to have a government, you're going to have some laws, and therefore you're going to have to police those laws. And so the best thing to do is just have some pretty tight bounds on that government so that there aren't that many laws to police. I mean, you're going to have some laws, and let's keep it simple, and maybe that'll keep us out of trouble. And I think the big issue is when you let government go unbound, that's when you run into all your troubles with policing. And so, anyways, at least that's the take I'm getting out of it. Leon, what are your thoughts on Mr. Mises' uh, quote here?
I, I mean, he's making it clear that we need defenders of the peace. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think in modern we don't say defenders of the peace. We might say law and order these days. And I think public order, even though it's been supplied by the government, I think public order is important. Now the question becomes, and I think this is what this gentleman Louis Van Mises is getting to, is that is the when you have central authority with unchecked powers, okay, and if we have a government and they have no boundaries upon them, God knows what happened to our liberties. If we have the governor with unchecked power, and then that unchecked power is passed to his constables, as he called them. Well, obviously we wouldn't say a police service or a police force of some kind, and we'll see all sorts of criminal behavior by the people who are supposed to be enforcements of the law and order. So I think that Van Mises is correct, that we must have you must give the police and the governor some authority to enforce law and order, but it must be bounded. It must be kept in check, because if it's unchecked, we are in danger of losing the very liberties that we are fighting for. So we must keep them in a cage, shall we say, where they enforce the law, they try to keep the peace, but they must be checked in the execution of their jobs. And this is vitally important, because if they will not be able to enforce the law if they themselves are lawbreakers. And anytime we have infringes upon our civil liberties, our freedoms, when you have infringements upon those things, those are clear violations of natural law. So they must be kept in check. And I think Van Mises is absolutely correct in his statement.
And just in case any of you are unsure of who Mr. Mises is, this is the man whose name is the forebearer for the Mises Institute. So that was named after this guy, and of course he's one of the fathers of Austrian economics. So not really known for his discussions on policing, but I thought it was kind of an interesting quote of his here. But he would be much more alarmed at where we are.
Quote, execute someone. I mean, it must be justified. Most times it is justified, but sometimes it's not. They can make this kind of decision, but
fish. he's finding that he's violated the law because maybe one of the fish is, maybe 5% too long or too short. I can't remember exactly. And of course, there's issues with how these things are even measured, right? I mean, how wet is the fish? Is it drying in the sun? All these things that the government isn't really even taking into account, right? When it goes and applies these issues. In fact, I even had a situation. I guess I'm digressing a little bit here, but I had gotten a parking ticket downtown, I don't know, about 7-8 years ago, and the meter maid comes by with the chalk. Well, I had moved my car. I know for a fact I had moved within the 2-hour time limit to several blocks away where it was considered a different zone. And I know for a fact that I had moved that car. But the issue was I only drove like 2 blocks, and I think the chalk didn't actually come off of the wheel in that short of a distance. And then I got a ticket, and there was no arguing with them. I mean, I kept trying to argue. I was suggesting that might have been what the confusion was. I mean, assuming they weren't just lying or whatever. But this is the point, right? Is that you get all these different laws, and I'm not even saying that parking enforcement, there's not some need. If the government's going to hold the parking spaces there in the commons, then there has to be some way to make sure people don't abuse them. But the issue was that here was some metric that the government had designed that it clearly had faults, and I fell through one of those cracks. I was a bit upset. So anyways, but yeah, the point is there's all kinds of laws out there and rules everywhere. We want to keep it as simple as possible, so we only have those rules that are really necessary. So when the police do show up, it's going to be a lot less confusing whether or not they're abusing their authority. So
of course, yes.
Well, now in Madison, Wisconsin, that takes us to our first story, and the way you would have a lot of the press would be explaining this to people is it sounds like police had abused their authority in this particular case, at least in the initial tellings of this.
Yes.
And of course, you can see this one story says, it's from the Wisconsin Examiner. It says, Madison police kill man in broad daylight in front of witnesses. That's literally the headline. It sounds a little
executed him, took a gun and blew a bullet in his head. My God.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, there were all kinds of stories in the news like this in broad daylight in front of witnesses. Well, we've got a news take from CBS on that. So let's play the video excerpts that we have from that, and that'll kind of help to give you a flavor of the take a lot of people were getting on this story and maybe a few of the details.
Are protesters demanding accountability in Wisconsin after Ruiz's deadly encounter with police, calling into question in particular the time between when he was tased and the fatal gunfire. Overnight, protesters marched through Madison, Wisconsin, hours after a vigil for 38-year-old Corey Ruiz, the man shot and killed by a Madison police officer Wednesday afternoon.
So what exactly happened, according to CBS?
Police say they were responding to reports that a man was checking parked cars when Ruiz fled on a bike. Madison police don't wear body cameras, but this cell phone video shows what happened after he encountered 4 officers. Police say Ruiz pulled out this knife during the struggle.
So according to CBS, the way they're framing the story is that the police were simply responding to a call for someone checking parked cars, right? Checking. I wonder what that means. And they don't mention anything about a criminal record, and they then say he pulled out a knife, but they don't actually say if he attacked the police with it, which is an interesting point in the story as well.
It was like life of the party, always like fun to be around.
Community organizer Jasmine Brown says Ruiz was a childhood friend. She's questioning why the officer shot just seconds after a taser was used, which the police chief says was unsuccessful.
I seen someone who was laying face down on the ground and was executed.
So now suddenly CBS is unskeptically reporting the narrative that he was face down on the ground, executed. That's the narrative that CBS is reporting. Now let's hear what the mayor has to say.
Madison's mayor.
It does not matter who you are or what your past is. You should not lose your life as a result of an encounter with law enforcement.
Okay. And we can see here's like Newsweek, and they're saying Corey Ruiz's sister says criminal records do not define him. And then here's eyewitness news from ABC says, family of man killed in Madison, Wisconsin, police shooting says he was an exceptional man.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, he was exceptional. I guess that's why he had his run-in with police, because he was so exceptional compared to the rest of the crowd.
Yes, exceptional in that nature.
Yeah. So anyway, you could see the way this was framed and the way a lot of these media stories are out there. They make it seem like, hey, this guy was just sort of out there. They don't even say if he was, involved in a crime. They just say he happened to be around.
Well, yes, just checking park cars,
Yeah. So it's kind of an odd framing, or very, very pro Ruiz framing, it felt like, in the story. Well, the New York Post, they also ran a video on this too, and I just wanted to show you the difference in the framing, just so we can kind of get on the same page of what actually happened, because it almost sounds like the police just sort of grabbed some guy because he happened to be maybe the wrong color on a bicycle and shot him to death out in the middle of the street. So let's watch the New York Post framing of this.
Cops have been responding to calls that someone was trying to enter parked cars in the neighborhood. When the harrowing incident unfolded, Patterson said. The suspect fled on a bike through nearby backyards in an attempt to get away before officers intercepted him in the street. During a brief scuffle, cops say the man then pulled out a knife and injured the same police officer who later shot the suspect. The officer, who was described as a veteran cop, has yet to be publicly identified.
The suspect was identified as ex-con Corey Ruiz, who later died at a local hospital.
The deadly incident has sparked fury in Madison, with protesters taking to the streets, as well as the site of the shooting.
So clearly we have some more details here. One, that he actually injured one of those cops with the knife.
Exactly.
I think I had heard a story where he had actually injured 2 of the cops with the knife, but anyways, regardless, he at least injured one of them with the knife in this telling, in a scuffle with 4 policemen, and he was going in and out of people's backyards.
I'm telling you,
to evade the police, and they caught him in the intersection. So and now this whole thing of checking cars too. I mean, look, this guy was literally trying to break into cars. What do you mean checking cars?
What does that mean? Yeah. What right? Well, then he's checking cars. What right does he have to do that? What right?
you know, I used to play games with my kids in the car, you know, maybe on long road trips where you try to spot a certain type of car. Maybe that's checking a car. I don't think so. I think the checking a car that we're talking about here is somebody who's trying to break into cars.
Exactly.
And then, of course, this brings up, they even said in this story, too, that he was an ex-con, right?
Yes.
They didn't
Yeah.
say that in the other story.
Mm.
So let's find out a little bit more about Ruiz's record, because we already heard the mayor already start to say, hey, look, it doesn't matter what somebody's record or what they're engaged in. They shouldn't have a risk of a fatality when they come into contact with the police. Well, let's see who Mr. Ruiz was.
Records do shed light on the degree to which Corey Ruiz had previously interacted with City of Madison police, not to mention other police departments in Dane County. We obtained more than 24 criminal complaints dating back nearly 20 years involving Ruiz. They show that not only did he have a violent criminal history, but that he had repeatedly engaged in physical struggles with police. Over the course of 2 decades, Ruiz was charged 9 separate times and convicted in 8 of them of resisting, obstructing, threatening, or injuring police officers. 5 of those cases involved City of Madison police. Others involved the town of Madison, Sun Prairie, Fitchburg, and Capitol Police. In
So let's hear a few of the details.
the 2021 case, 4 City of Madison police officers say Ruiz resisted arrest and threatened the officers. According to prosecutors, Ruiz said, quote, "I'll beat the bleep out of you. I'll knock your bleeping lenses to your eyes. You better kill me now. And I hope the next offender you come across kills you and everyone you care about."
Okay, so
What an exceptional man.
yes, exactly, Leon. I couldn't have said it better myself. So clearly, just not your average car checker. But this kind of brings up I guess the analogy here to George Floyd. I mean, this happened in the same region, and now suddenly there's an investigation on these cops. And this guy was clearly a dirtbag. He was clearly in the process of committing crimes.
Sure.
And the police confronted him. He whips out a knife. I mean, that's a step beyond George Floyd.
Yeah, really. At least George Floyd didn't do that, you know?
Yeah,
Shit.
and here the people are still going nuts trying to defend this guy when he tried to. Well, he did injure one of the cops, so he must have stabbed one of the cops with that knife.
Yes.
So it's you know, I believe 2 cops went to the hospital after the confrontation. I think both of them were released within a day. But you know, the point is that something happened here, and if a person who's they're trying to arrest in a melee pulls out a knife, I think, you know, at that point, you know, what are we doing here if we're not we have police that can't respond? You know, I don't know. That's the last thing I think I'm going to be doing if I'm just checking cars.
Yes, tell me the
Whip
same.
out a
Yes.
knife against a group of police
Yes.
officers.
Checking cars with a deadly weapon in your pocket, right? That's what's
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, Leon, hold on just a second. Hold your thought, because the insanity gets worse. So now we've analogized this a little bit to George Floyd, and you can see in this story here. So what happened? Just like with George Floyd, they established an autonomous zone. So protesters took over the streets around where this killing occurred and tried to hold it. Now the government didn't allow for the insanity to go on nearly as long as it did in the case of George Floyd, but this occurred here as well too. In fact, they even had a press conference where a protester takes the mic away from the chief of police like he's Bernie Sanders or something. I have a short video of that, Leon, and then I'll hand it back to you. But I mean, this is nuts. I mean, the police are sitting there and they're trying to communicate with the public on this, and somebody literally just comes in and takes the mic from them.
Thinnest of trust in the city right now did not start.
Well, we can shut this down. You can stop talking because we don't want to hear anything you've been saying. You're going to say the same thing you all say every time a black body gets shot down in this city. This is a corrupt city. That's right. Have no fear. The anti-Zionist is here. You understand me? You won't be able to talk today because I'm going to keep talking because I was born to talk my talk and walk my walk too. I told these young people back here on our way here that we have the power. Not that badge, not that weapon. We have the power. The city of Madison is corrupt. From the DA to the...
So apparently the cops in Wisconsin are based, just too bad it's soy based. This guy literally just gets up and takes the microphone away from the chief of police.
What's the name of this? The Department of Independent Monitoring. We don't want any of that talk. You've given us this speech with "you'll deliver justice." Oh, we've seen the cameras. We've seen. It was a knife in this young man's hand. We don't want to hear that today. We didn't want to hear it when they put their neck on George Floyd's neck. We don't their foot on George Floyd's neck, and we don't want to hear it today. What do you have to say about that? Oh, you don't get to talk, I said.
Right.
Go ahead.
Enough is enough.
I'll step aside.
That's right. Give me this microphone then. Excuse me. That's right. My name is Carlos Stinson. I represent APTAP, All Power.
There you go. And that went on for, I think, around 4 or 5 minutes. This guy went on a tirade, and to the point where audience members are asking if they can speak and hear from the chief of police. I mean, this is absolutely nuts. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Leon?
You know, Jason, I mean, the facts of this case is fairly evident here, okay? I mean, there was a guy evading the police. Well, he was trying to commit a crime, obviously, commit some sort of crime, evading the police. The police met up with him. He was resisting arrest. They tried to subdue him. He pulls out a knife. I mean, all of these facts are so far undisputed. And the police officer shot the guy. Okay, so nobody's disputing that. You know, the dangers that we face here is not really what's this incident in and of itself. Okay, the dangers that we face here in this society or in Wisconsin or wherever it is, all of these so-called protests are going on, is the narrative that the media is generating. So if the media was being objective, they would have said something like what I have just said. The facts that are in dispute and the facts that are not in dispute, okay? Was a police officer injured? Yes, as far as we know. Was a knife pulled? Yes, as far as we know. All of these facts would have been laid out to the public. But instead, it's not. Instead, we get these narratives of here we have another white police officer shooting an innocent black man, right? And then you go back and you find out, well, when you look at this quote-unquote innocent black man, you find out he have a horrible history, a rap sheet history of crime. Now, at the time the police shot him, he may not have been aware of this guy and his background. But the fact of the matter is, this guy has a criminal history, which says something about his pattern of behavior. But yet the media gives us, oh, this exceptional man, as the sister said, and was reported unchecked in the media. Oh, he didn't deserve to die this way. Well, nobody deserved to be gunned down by the police. Nobody is disputing that fact. But if we have someone injuring police officer while they're trying to keep the peace, try to execute their duties as a law enforcement officer, if somebody is injuring them, the police officer in that execution of their duty, the police officer has every right to defend himself or herself. So our problem here in all of these things, whether it was in George Floyd or whether in this guy, this Corey Ruiz, who will now become famous here in America, whether we're talking about either one of these incidents, and there have been other incidents also, we always have the media to portray and to give us a narrative that is totally in contradiction to the facts of the case.
Well, no, sorry, I got to break in for a second. Speaking of media, in this case, our time on public access is come to an end on this show, but you can catch the rest of the conversation at knuckleheadsofliberty.com, where we will talk about a little bit more about this case, as well as the connection to Democratic Socialists of America policy and some of the concerns that Democrats are having about some of this now. Anyways, back to you, Leon.
Yes, and these false narratives that have been put out there are emboldening these so-called protesters. You know, for every one black man that is shot by the police, we probably have 9 or 10 black men being killed by another black man. But where is the protest for those things? Some of these black people who die in these black and black incidents of violence are little kids. Where is the protest for these things? Where is it? But as soon as we have an incident like this, all these racial grifters come out, like Benjamin Crumb. Oh God, he's like he need to go back under the rock from whence he came, that little cockroach. Or that other one from New York, what's his face? Al Sharpton. They always there to incite. They're always there to incite. Oh, the history of racism in America. We have to talk about these things. Well, then let's talk about it. Fine. You want to talk about history of racism? Let's talk about the Democratic Party, because they have a long and storied history of racism, going all the way back to slavery. But nobody
and going all the way to today.
To the day, exactly. Going all the way to the day. Okay. And it is amazing. So the dangers within us, the dangers within our society, it's not incidents like these. They will happen. There's no way to get around that. They will occur. We'll have police officers having to make split-second decisions about people they encounter. That is going to happen. But the dangers that we really face is in the narratives of the media, and that are causing these quote-unquote protests when they are nothing about these racial grifters trying to get the piece of the pie. And it is such a disgusting thing. And it's also such a threat upon our liberties as Americans. And if we don't do something about these media and the narratives and the false narratives they put out, but you know the funny thing about it, we can't do nothing about them because they're protected by the First Amendment. But they don't act like a media. They don't give us objective things. They give us their own political agendas. So you can't call it news, but you can't do anything about them because they're protected by the First Amendment. I wouldn't want them not to be protected. I really don't. I believe in free speech. I love free speech. Well, but the media is a threat to us.
Well, and also too, when you say, I guess we can't do anything about it. I mean, we can do one thing, and that's that we as consumers can choose better what we listen to. I mean, in a way,
fair point.
Us to some degree, if we're
fair point.
You know, there's a multitude of media out there nowadays. It's not even like the days when we only had 3 networks talking to us, and a lot of times they were giving a specific narrative that the government wanted us to hear.
Right?
And whether it be about maybe the Vietnam War or something else like that, right? I mean, these are things that, you know, now we have tons of choices, but we're still choosing badly. So, you know, this is much more on us as individuals, and it's part of your individual responsibility of having liberty to try and make sure that you are, I guess, not consuming the worst slop that's out there, I guess, you know, that just totally confirms your own biases. So
absolutely. And that is so true. You know, just this evening, and I don't mean to digress, get off the rails too far on this issue. I understand what we're talking about. But just
look, we like the bullet train. We'll never get to our destination.
That's right. That's right. But I was listening to the ABC News this evening. I wasn't really listening to it. I was listening to it because my wife listened to ABC News, and I was listening to David Muir. And David Muir is talking about this primary that occurred in Michigan yesterday, and a gentleman by the name of Abdul Al-Sayed or something won the primary. Is the Senate for a Democratic nomination.
For United States Senate, yeah.
For the United States Senate. You know, here's ABC now presenting this thing, and they are talking. It was a race between the progressive Mr. Al-Sayed and the moderate, whatever her name was, and they never once mentioned that Al-Sayed is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and the policies of these people are nothing but communism rebranded. They never mentioned anything like that. He was presented as a progressive versus a moderate. This is the kind of dishonest things. I mean, it's not to say that I'm asking them to say anything that are not known about the Democratic Socialists of America. We had somebody on Fox News telling us all the things that they believe, and it's nothing but communism. You already look at it. They want to abolish the Senate. They want to abolish the thing. They want to seize private property. All these other things. That's what Zoran Mandani right now is talking about in New York. They want to seize private property. And what do you call that? But ABC News can't tell us that. This is why I'm saying the media is a danger to us. Especially the mainstream media is a danger to us. And when I say we can't do anything about it, I mean we can't like legislatively put them out of business. I would not support that. I didn't mean that that we couldn't take off the news and look at something else. And you made a good point. We could consume other kinds of media, but the mainstream media is truly an enemy of our liberties. That's what they are, and that's what they have become. They have chosen a side, and they have chosen a side. They have chosen a political agenda, and they think they're going to feed that nonsense to us until we submit.
Well, and I think this really hammers down the point that whether some people yearn to have government standards in media or government standards in history or government standards in education, whatever the case may be, the last thing you want is government standards in all these things. You want competition. Sure. You know, because that's ultimately the only way that you have a chance for a true narrative. And we all saw that with COVID, right? And this debacle with Anthony Fauci and some of these others that, you know, there is there's no shortcut to the truth around free speech and, you know, open dialogue. So,
yes.
So anyways, and that's true with journalism. Unfortunately, most of these people who are journalists are all being educated in government captured schools, right? I mean, all of the schools have a ton of government money going into them, and you know, so they're unfortunately it's a little more propaganda. So that's probably a big part of the reason why you know, even though we have competition out there, it seems to be weighted a little more toward the suspect product.
Yes.
But anyways, so that's just my 2 cents on that. But I think one thing before we go away from this and transition into the DSA, because that was actually a good transition that you made talking about El Said. But I did want to mention too that one of the issues, and here's an image in this it's little video clip, I guess, that they have on X here, but it's showing the autonomous zone that was set up here. So, you know, you can kind of see the tents that are occupying the street here and mattresses on the ground and all that, where, you know, they had just occupied this section of street. And of course, the government has come in now, the local government, and they have tried to remove the protesters. And my understanding is I'm not even 100% sure if they've been removed yet, because the police had taken back the street. And then I heard once the police left, the protesters came back.
Yes, they came back.
I'm not sure what the status is. If you're in Madison today on August 5th, maybe you got protesters on the street, or maybe you got police on the street. I'm not really sure.
You know,
point, but yeah,
we'll finish.
Yeah. It's a story in flux. That's all I had to say about it. So go ahead, Leon.
You know, but this is another point about this whole story. But this is also connected to the George Floyd riots, of these setting up of autonomous zones. Where did these people get the idea that they have this right? Like they want to just secede from the United States at will? We fought a whole civil war. I mean, hundreds of thousands on both sides of that war died just to say you have no right of secession. A state doesn't have a right of secession, not according to our history. But yet these little fools think they have some right They could set up an autonomous zones. They can make their own rules and their own laws that are separate from the laws of the jurisdictions in which they reside. Where did they get the idea that this is a good thing? Where? I would bet you if we really search it, there's going to be some media story, some things about autonomy or blah, 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 so damn nonsense like this. I'll bet you something like that. I don't know for sure. But where did they get this idea? Where does this nasty idea come from? That you could set up an autonomous zone within the United States of America?
Well, Leon, what scares me a little more, it's not so much the idea of people thinking, wanting an option to walk away from the government. It's the issue that there are people in these areas who are paying their taxes and who are following the laws, and now suddenly their rights are being taken away because
exactly, yes,
you have the autonomous zone are suddenly walking around and saying they're the police, right?
Right. Good point.
Now you have zero. These essentially are. Let's bring back the quote from Mises here, but I mean these essentially become unbound constables, right? Because you have no ability to direct what the rules are that are supposed to constrain these people. And that's what happened when Seattle had its chop zone during the 2020 George Floyd riots, and what the mayor there called the Summer of Love. They just allowed these gangs of thugs to go around, armed gangs that the police, I believe, the government was even paying them to do it, which is absolutely nuts, to police themselves because they didn't want to let the police in. And it ended with several people being killed there by
I think two kids were killed eventually, and that is what they end up dismantling the trap zone. But this is crazy. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, but that's my only point there, is that you're exchanging, I guess, these government police officers that have some constraints for these crazy people, these leftists who just want to take your property that have no constraints.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's kind of nuts. I mean, and it does put us as libertarians in kind of a weird place, because we are very skeptical about the government. We want to keep the government very small. Some of us would like to eliminate it altogether and just let the market work everything out. But I tend to be a little bit more on the minarchist side myself. So a little bit of government but I'm open. If you happen to be an anarchist out there, you can convince me. But I think there are some areas that are really challenging to get around, and that's
yes, I think so too. I think so too. Yes, I would like to think that the free market can solve all our problems, but I'm not sold on that idea. I really am not.
Well, but the crazy thing is, though, I mean, I think we're looking at this from kind of a principled position, where these people are saying we don't respect the government, police, or authority, and now we want to create our own authority that we're going to lord over everybody else. Right? And that's the problem, right? Fundamentally, it's a completely incoherent thing. The libertarian motto is kind of like, we're desperately trying to seize power so that we can, essentially walk away and leave it alone. Where these people, they want to seize power and they want to force stuff on you, right? That's the complete difference with Democrat socialists and libertarians here. We're not trying to control anybody. If any of us are trying to get elected or anything else, it's so we can kind of disentangle and dismantle the system as much as possible.
Indeed.
Anyways, just so there's no confusion there. So this does bring us up to this whole Democrat Socialists of America thing, because these policies of defund the police and just creating autonomous zones, all kinds of other odd things, that is very much something that is coming into fashion now, and it's happening within the Democrat Party. And even to the point where, as we said, Bill Maher had quite a rant, I guess, recently. Here's a piece from The Hill that's talking about that. Unfortunately, there's a little commercial going on there, but we've cut some excerpts from Bill Maher's New Rules segment that he talked about this, and I think it's worth hearing some of this because, if nothing else, the alarmism that is happening now with some of the, I guess, establishment Democrats. So let's hear Bill Maher on some of this.
Donald Trump has told 1 trillion lies, but when he says the Democratic Socialists of America are actually communist, that's not one of them. And it's not hard to prove it, just by quoting the DSA and their candidates.
Okay, so let's start off with the DSA platform.
You work as much as you are able and no more than needed. If that was any closer to Karl Marx's dictum, from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs, they'd be sued for plagiarism.
So now let's hear about New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and influencer Hassan Piker.
Not to leave any doubt, New York Mayor Mamdani once tweeted Karl Marx's words exactly. They're not trying to hide it. Their most popular influencer, Hassan Piker, thinks communism is so groovy. He laments the fall of the 2 of the most murderous regimes in history, the Soviet Union and Chairman Mao's China.
And on to Francesca Hahn.
Francesca Hahn, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police, and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another, and then we know nobody's disposable. Well, murder victims are...
Now, Darlesia Chevalier.
Darlesia Chevalier supports seizing all properties from landlords and said, seize the means of production. Mamdani has said the end goal is seizing the means of production. I think they want to seize the means of production.
And on to Celia Weaver.
Mamdani's aide, his top aide, Celia Weaver, said if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize property, it's over, and impoverish the white middle class. What? That's a goal? You know you're supposed to scare people into voting for you, right?
And the Marxist Unity Group within the Democratic Socialists of America.
Now the coalition within the DSA, called the Marxist Unity Group, is in ascendance, and I must take them at their word when their words include, our commitment is to the long-term struggle for a fully liberated, classless society, in a word, communism. What do they have to do? Tweet out, elect more communists? Oh yeah, Celia Weaver did that. Yes. Good, I'm glad you're shocked.
So there you have it. I mean, this is, you know, the Democrats are alarmed. That's the best way to say this. And rightly so, although you do have to feel like they brought this on themselves. I mean,
yes,
the Democrats, even people like Bill Maher and all these others, they are for voting for free stuff. You know, a lot of times they are for these different, you know, sort of semi-socialist or socialist programs. I mean, certainly all of them seem to support the government schools. You know, they support a lot of the different welfare programs. You know, it's almost like every one of these programs, when they've heard it before, they've argued for it. And, you know, and most of them are fairly comfortable with some level of redistributions. But then now when these people come along and they want more, what's the defense? I mean, if you've said you're cool with some level of government redistribution, but not that much,
yeah,
where's the line?
Where
Right?
do you draw the lines? Exactly.
Exactly. So this is just, this seems to me to be inevitable that you would have this progress within a group like the Democrat Party. It's not like there's any saving this party. You know, it's not like, you know, even if somehow the establishment wrestles back control, there's no principled reason why people wouldn't say, why can't we have more? Right?
Yes, exactly.
If you're saying a little bit's a good thing, why not more? Why not the free buses? Why not the free college? Why not the free grocery stores? Why not the free health care? Right? It's just, you know, once you start down that road, where do you draw the line? Anyways, yeah, sorry, Leon, I've kind of been monopolizing the conversation.
No. It's all good points. I mean, it is obvious that the Democratic Socialists of America is a natural extension of what we call the mainstream Democratic Party. Because like you said, it's always about free stuff. They always want to give you some free stuff. oh, we're going to forgive student loans. You know, that was a big thing a couple of years ago until the Supreme Court said no. Oh, we're going to give you free welfare. You know, like it's going to be manna from heaven. Oh, we're going to give you free subsidies for your electric car. You know, manna from heaven. They always want to give you free stuff and never say somebody else is going to pay for it. Oh, we're going to tax the rich. You know, like the rich is some evil Satan's living somewhere under some rock somewhere, and they're just going to get in there and grab some of their wealth and take it to do some great good, like giving you free health care or free this or free that. It is the natural extension of the Democratic Party, the Democratic Socialists of America. And the natural extension of the Democratic Socialists of America is communism. Because look at what they're talking about. They want to seize private property. As if, you know, we didn't work for that, you know. We stole it. All of us, we stole it. So they decide, well, they want to take my home. They can take it if they wish. They want to take, if we have some rental property, oh, well, we could seize that too. They're going to stand up for the renters. But you're absolutely right in the point that you just made, is that where do you draw the lines? When you start down this slippery slope of free stuff, where do you draw the line? You're already obtaining our taxes through force. That's what they're doing. I mean, everybody say, no, we just pay our taxes. No, nobody's forcing us. Really? Well, what if I get up tomorrow morning and decide, well, I'm not going to pay taxes anymore. I had enough of this. What do you think is going to happen to me? What do you think is going to happen to me? I'm sure there's some prison ready to open its doors to welcome me in.
Yeah,
you're
going to find out really quick that their what do they call it? The warmth of collectivism comes at the force of a gun.
There you go. Well said. I couldn't say that better. Yeah. But this is just the point. They talk about giving away all these free stuff. They keep on telling, we're going to give you free stuff, give you free stuff. They never tell you to fund this free stuff is done through force. They never say that. Yeah. And then even if, like you said, they could, you know, moderate the message given by the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and they can moderate it. But where they're going to draw the lines, even if you could bring it back closer to this quote-unquote center, where they're going to draw these lines? When they're going to say, you know, that is a little too much. When they're going to say that? Where and how? They can't.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just wanted to jump in and say, too, that this isn't just Democrats that are completely enabling this. Republicans are doing it, too, because Republicans have also played this game of free stuff occasionally, not as badly as Democrats have.
Yeah, that's true.
But, you know, you had Bush when we were in the middle of the whole, Iraq war, and he winds up offering a free drug plan for seniors, right?
Yes.
And, so, I mean, these things are, it's sort of like Republicans seem to be a little bit on the light side of free stuff. Democrats are in the middle, and the DSA is
on the heavy.
Right. But the point is, none of them are that principled, right? I mean, the idea is they're all doing it to a degree. And once you start that game, you know, I don't know how many times I hear Republicans say, well, we've got to give something, otherwise they're not going to vote for us. Right? So, and I hear this now, like they want to offer kids free stuff. Why are you offering kids free stuff? Show them that right now it's actually seniors that tend to be getting more from the system, and we need to pull back on that, not to give more people, not to expand the umbrella of free stuff, but to start pulling back, right? So that everybody feels like they have skin in the game, and that this isn't, you know, that this isn't about one group taking from another. Unfortunately, that's all these different policies do. And even to the point, you know, where Trump said no tax on tipping, right? it's almost setting up this class thing where, well, wait a second, if no taxes are such a great thing, why don't we apply that equally to all groups, right?
All groups.
or a reduction in taxes to all
Yes,
groups
to all
instead
groups.
of
Sure.
targeting certain groups so that you can, try and win their votes, right? So this is, it's bad messaging, I think. It may be a strategy that seems to work, in these corrupt times, but the real solution is we have to rein in all government, not ballooning it out. So, sorry, Leon, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure the Republicans took a little bit.
I think it's a valid point. Is a valid point that the Republicans could be just as, well, I wouldn't say just as dirty, but they do the damn nonsense as the Democrats do, and but let's just be clear, okay? All Republicans are not conservatives, and all conservatives are not Republicans. So just to make that clear, but
yeah, we got a few wacky libertarians too.
Yes, right. But the point is valid. So, but it gets back to the point. Where do you draw this line? Even though it's both sides do it at some level or the other. Where do you draw these lines? Where do you say now we cannot buy any more votes from using government laggards? It's that kind of questions that we have to ask. And those are the kind of questions we don't ask. So the Democratic Socialists of America, the rise of these communists in America is a natural extension of the Democratic Party. Okay, even though I will concede that point you make is valid. And I think, going now on putting on my political hat, this is a good opportunity for the Republicans to defy history, because the history is that in the midterm elections, the party that is out of power, and in this case, the party out of power is the Democratic Party. The party that is out of power usually will gain seats in both the House and the Senate. I think these Democratic Socialists of America have created an opportunity for the Republicans to defy history and gain seats in both of them because of these people and their nasty ideas. So let's see. I don't know what will happen in the midterms, but I know what I wish for. But we'll see. We'll see. I think the Republicans stand a good chance of defying history because of these people.
Well, both sides seem to be giving the other side chances. I mean, between the mishandling of the Epstein thing, getting ourselves into another war, and then here on the other side we have full-on communism. Both sides seem to be opening. Their goalies seem to just be walking away from the nets and saying, "Hey, opportunity abounds." So, yeah. But anyway.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's always chance that both sides. I just believe the mess. There's a greater mess on the Democrat side than on the Republican side. Even though you're right about the war and the Epstein file nonsense and all that kind of stuff, but I think the Republicans really have a good chance. Take for instance, we just spoke about the seat in Michigan. I think they have a chance to flip that. The seat is now being held by a Democrat. And I think there's a very good chance of the Republicans flipping that seat if they play the cards right. Okay? So these sort of things I think is really happening in the Wisconsin governor's race. The seat is being held by the governor is a Democrat. I think it could end up in Republican hands because of these DSA people. And there are numerous examples like that around the country. So we'll see. I'm not saying I have a crystal ball of some kind, but I think these people have a bigger impact than we think. I tell you, let me just finish this point. Let me just land this point. You just spoke about Bill Maher and how we have been lambasting these people. Another person who just came out against these people, the DSA, James Carville. James Carville have even suggested he may leave the Democratic Party if these DSA people continue to rise. He said that same Hassan Piker that you just showed there, if Hassan Piker and him end up in the same party, with him being a major force within the Democratic Party, he's going to leave the Democratic Party. If James Carville is saying this, we know the Democrats have a problem. Seriously.
Well, yeah, certainly. Like I said, I think some Democrats within the establishment are seriously considering how to, at the very least, try to smother the DSA and the crib.
Yes.
You know, that's you know, it's abortion after birth.
Yes.
No limits on this. Right?
No limits on that.
Yeah, just because they've got a few candidates who won now, that doesn't mean they're too late to abort them.
The abort, yeah, that's right. Yes, post-birth abortions. Good idea. You know, but this is the point. They created this Frankenstein. They created it, and now they don't know how to deal with the Frankenstein. That is the problem.
Yeah. Well, I do want to show just a couple real quick clips too that go into discussing a little bit more about the Frankenstein. So here's a real short clip also from Bill Maher's show, but he's talking about one of the ways they want to impact the structure of our government. So it's not just defunding the police and taking away property. I mean, they also want to fundamentally change the order of how our government is structured. So here's a little short on that.
This crowd literally wants to get rid of our form of government, the Senate, but also, and I quote, replace the president and Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. Yeah, no biggie. Just taking the very essence of our government, which is 3 branches checking each other and shit-canning 2.5 of them.
So, you know, clearly it goes against the balances of power that this whole structure is set up on. But if you want to see how this group behaves, I guess, when they're just trying to work with themselves, here's a little clip of Democratic Socialists of America organizing with each other.
Who could be this nuts? I'll tell you who. Morons who are still wearing COVID masks in 2026. This photo is from the DSA meeting in Denver 3 weeks ago.
And so here is a little bit of time from a DSA meeting that occurred a few years back, but kind of went viral for obvious reasons. You can kind of see how nutso it would be if these people were in charge just by sitting in one of their meetings. Let's just take a snippet here.
If we want to defeat capitalism, we are going to need a party that will organize working people to fight for the demands that we want and to win socialism. Thank you so much.
Great.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade.
Yes, you got that, comrade. No cheering or clapping. You got to use like jazz hands or other sensitive ways of showing your approval for things. I'm not sure what, but wait, there's more.
Okay, is there a speaker against name, chapter, pronouns?
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Point of personal privilege. He, him.
Yes. Could you imagine these people want to rule us, right? Okay. Imagine that one cannot deal with excessive sensory, whatever. But what happens if we end up in a war? When the bombs drop, what are you gonna do? Hide under your desk? Is that what you plan to do? Huh? If you are the president or of some high-ranking official, what do you plan to do with your little sensory problems? We can't clap when you do something right, or we can't boo when you do a piece of crap. I mean, you're gonna do a lot of it. I could guarantee that. And then this next fool talking about, we have to talk no gendered language. This fool wants to rule us, and we can't talk no that. You know, it just reminds me of that the little kid who the police was trying to arrest, and you know what, the kid wasn't worried about getting arrested. You know, the kid was worried about being misgendered by the police.
I didn't hear that story.
Yes, though.
Oh, now I remember. That was at the college. Oh, God.
Yes, a college kid. A college kid. I forgot what university it was, but The
Yeah.
police was going to arrest the guy for, I don't know what the hell it was, maybe disturbing the peace or something and stuff. And he jumping up and down. I want you to stop misgendering me. You're going to get arrested, bro. You didn't figure that one out yet.
Yeah. No, at least he didn't pull a knife like Corey Ruiz.
There you go.
But he
There you
did
go.
have a
He did.
confrontation with the police.
Yes.
All of the pronouns, and they weren't even there for him. They were there for a report on a stolen car. Yeah, it's too bad. I did want to do that story at some point, and I think I meant to do it with the DSA stuff, and I forgot. Because the news cycle moves so fast, and it's been
That's
over a
right.
week now since that happened. But yeah, the kid winds up, and the funniest thing in that story is that as he's having his confrontation with the police officer, and you see the policeman struggling with the kid, trying to put him in cuffs, and the kid is yelling and screaming at him and everything else, and finally the police officer decides maybe it might help as he's trying to cuff the kid to use the correct pronouns, and when he does, the kid suddenly says thank you. He's fighting with the police officer. So yeah, it's it's a kind of a form of mental illness.
This is some sad crap. But the point is, or the more important thing is that these people think they are qualified to rule us. You know, they can't hear gender language, otherwise it's gonna trigger them. They can't hear sensory like clapping or any kind of thing like that, or that's gonna trigger them. They can't deal with just the realities of the world, because obviously, based upon their gender, their agenda, they don't think everybody should work, or it should be each according to his ability, and you don't need to work more than you have to, blah blah blah. And what about the rest of us? So we're gonna have to work to support this damn nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of spineless, weak ass people we are talking about here? And these are the people who want to rule us? This is sick.
And it's very authoritarian if you think about it. I mean, these people with their demands on language and other things like that, because language ultimately is a voluntary exchange between two people.
Exactly.
And so if you are having this voluntary exchange, it's all about respect. And if you are having a dialogue with somebody and you respect them and you know maybe they have certain issues, well, then maybe you'll work your words around that as a sign of respect. But you don't owe anybody just walking down the street any particular respect beyond not attacking them and they not attacking you. And it'd be good if you can at least say hello and but to demand that somebody say you address me as what I see myself in my head. I see myself as a unicorn. How dare you not see me as? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. If somebody doesn't know, and you just don't have the right to demand it, and your right is to walk away, right? So if you don't want to deal with somebody because they're rude or because they say nasty things to you, then just walk away, and if you're on private property, then hopefully the people on that private property will agree and keep that person out, right? And if it's your property, all the better, then you can keep that person out.
Yes.
Right. So, but these people are the ones who don't believe in private property. They want to collect it.
They want to. Yes.
Yeah, they just imagine it's their preference that's going to get forced on everybody in the collective.
But you see, and this is an important point you're making. They do not understand the difference between. I mean, I'm talking about the gender, transgender issue, whatever. They do not understand the difference between compelled speech and speech that's generated through mutual respect. So, like you just gave the example that if you are speaking to someone and there's mutual respect between two people, of course, you try as much as you can to accommodate that person's whatever their preferences might be. But in the case of the little kid you were just talking about, this kid is demanding that some unknown person, it was a police officer in this case, must abide by her gender choices. This is compelled speech. And this is in direct contradiction to the U.S. Constitution. There's no authority that can force us to speak a certain way or to use certain words. And these people don't understand that difference. And this is embedded in the First Amendment of our Constitution.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I guess they don't respect the Constitution either because they want to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff. So who the hell knows?
Exactly. The ultimate irony for a lot of these people too is that they don't see a problem with violating other people's autonomy in the name of collectivism, you know, coming after your stuff for collectivism. But in order to do that, they also have to surrender their own autonomy to the collective. And whenever you have a collective, you have to, you know, now the collective is making the decision, and that means you have to choose a leader within the collective to make those decisions. And that's essentially Animal Farm, right? You know, once you go down that route, somebody has to be given the power to that collective power to make the decisions, because we're not all making the decision anymore. That's the whole point of liberty and, you know, private property and, you know, capitalism, individual ownership, is that we're all making decisions. But when you collectivize, now you are centralizing power, and somebody has to be making those day-to-day decisions for that collective power.
Yes.
And ultimately, the person who gets there is going to make a lot of those. They're going to decide things in favor of their preferences, not your preferences. So that's you know, so it's just sort of an irony that these people never seem to see. They just always assume it's going to go their way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, before we leave Bill Maher, I did want to point out the fact too that, you know, they're kind of shocked why they've got so many people who've gone into crazy land on this DSA stuff. Well, maybe the fact that they have massively played into it, you know, with all of the racism charges and vilifying the other side, the Republicans, and you know, to a large degree, you know, I see them vilifying libertarians as well, and you know, that so the idea that you suddenly are having people shift toward this crazy land of communism and stuff, it's almost like, well, if they didn't like the Democrats, and they can't choose the Republicans because they're all evil racists, right? then you know, maybe we'll just go more extreme left. And here's an example. I just wanted to, you know, because to let Bill Maher off the hook, like somehow he's been the voice of sanity and reason this whole time,
right,
is a little bit rich. So I did want to at least push back on that for him just a little bit.
30% of this country will always vote Republican. I'm just asking why. Yes, paranoia, greed, and racism are fun, but... And I would never say that all Republicans are racist, but if you are a racist and you're looking for a political party, this is the obvious choice. They all follow this script of restore America, I want my country back. Now, they just don't like the idea of a black family eating off the White House china. They can couch it any way they want, but it just did not go down well with them.
Mr. Maher just said, if I heard him right, that conservatives basically are racist and they like government intrusion only against people who aren't white. I mean, that's the level.
Just what he said about, or rephrasing I would never say, and I have never said, because it's not true, that all Republicans are racist. That would be silly and wrong. But nowadays, if you are racist, you're probably a Republican. Overtly racist bullshit, thinly painted over. Honestly, could anyone have written a better metaphor for the modern Republican Party? I know that sounds harsh, but I say it because in today's GOP, there's only one correct answer in a discussion about racism, and that is, there is no racism in America anymore, except reverse racism against whites. That shit is real.
And I just can't help but recalling that he was pointing out that Celia Weaver in New York, the advisor to Mamdani, saying that the goal is to impoverish middle-class white people.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, you know, here Bill Maher is gaslighting this whole time, and then, you know, suddenly acting like he's not been part of the problem. So anyways, I didn't want to leave this subject. Giving a little bit of the credit to him for this.
It's a valid point. It's a big one, you know. And, you know, this expression he used there, does always grind my soul when he uses it, when anyone uses it for that matter, is reverse racism. There's no such thing as reverse racism, okay? The mere fact you use the word reverse racism is a racist term, because you are presuming under your heart on their soul is that racism always go in only one direction. That is racism in and of itself. But you still see people using this reverse racism. What the hell does that mean? Racism is racism, whichever direction it's going in. Whether it's the black doing it, or the white doing it, or the Jews doing it, or the white man doing it to the Jews, or whoever it is. Racism always go in whatever direction it goes in. It does not matter. There's no such thing as reverse racism. That is a racist term. And there's Bill using it as, and everybody clapping and yeah. What the hell is that? I just hate that expression, you wouldn't believe. To the depths of my soul.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, a lot of these DSA people and a lot of Democrats, they agree with you. There's no such thing as reverse racism because they don't see it as racism at all when they commit racism against white people. When they literally have college entrance standards at Harvard and they set up a metric, as we've talked about before on the show. The New York Post had a good write-up on this, and it literally says they set up a new metric to say about personalities that they associate with colors, and how black people and Hispanic people suddenly have these wonderful personalities, and Asian people just have the least on the personality. I mean, how racist can you possibly be? I mean, anything to dishonestly skirt around the fact that they want, racial quotas in there, to be able to get a certain, because they want the finish line to look a certain way,
exactly,
regardless of merit, then to them any racism is fair game. They just don't want to call it racism. Right? So, but I mean, Hitler would have been just fine with them saying that, yeah, I totally agree. People of different colors have different personalities, and I just, Hitler would probably flip it. All over what Bruce was preferring, right? So, yeah. And we don't have to go to the Hitler. I shouldn't have brought Hitler in. It could just be your average Democrat grand wizard.
Grand
we can associate with this. I think Democrats have probably been more highly represented among grand wizards in the past.
Oh, for sure. There's 5-year denials for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I guess that's pretty much our take on Bill Maher's stuff. But that does bring us up to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and it brings us up to some comments that happened just today. I think it was this morning on The Hills Rising. I love watching that show. It's got a situation where they always have a libertarian arguing with sort of a progressive person, and in this case they were talking about this Han woman, and that's the woman you saw leading that DSA convention, and she was also the one Bill Maher brought up in the thing about disbanding the police or defunding the police. And so anyway, she has been on the hot seat for wanting to get an old quote of wanting to get rid of Thanksgiving as a holiday. And so that brought up a lively debate on the show, and I thought it was worth showing because we get to see libertarian ideas tested against the nuttiness of these DSA ideas, and so it's just too precious to not share. So I'm gonna play the video now, and we'll talk about it at the end.
Francesca Hong wants to be Wisconsin's next governor. Hong is a Democratic Socialist, and she makes other Democratic Socialists look like country club Republicans. In addition to being a far-left socialist on economic issues, she also checks every woke box. For instance, she previously called the police a white supremacist institution and vowed to dismantle them. Don't stop there. She also wants to abolish Thanksgiving.
So this is the woman who we saw leading that DSA meeting earlier while we were talking about the Bill Maher piece. Also, too, Bill Maher had criticized her for wanting to get rid of the police. So that's where a lot of this is going to go. But let's hear the clip that everybody was talking about from CNN first.
You still believe that Thanksgiving should be canceled?
I'm a chef. And one of the first meals that I made that was for the community when I was 16 was a Thanksgiving meal. You know, I always think my hospitality background in owning a restaurant for 7-8 years, that bringing folks around the table to share conversation and build community is always a good thing. But Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our communities. And so I think there I wanted to make sure that people understood that there are multiple views, but you know, views can evolve.
So here Lindsay comes to the defense of her DSA champion.
And I'll talk to every single thing that she brought up is actually really relevant. So when you talk about policing in America being rooted in white supremacy, that's the truth. In the 18th century slave patrols down south, they were meant to catch slaves, and that turned into modern day policing, particularly down south. So when you talk about the root of why we created police, look at slave patrols down south and you'll find that connection. Yes, it is, literally.
That's false. That's just misinformation.
It was established in 1704 in South Carolina. It's accurate. Look it up. And you say this is a fallacy, but you never come with receipts that prove otherwise.
So Robbie tries to jump in with a little bit of sanity, but spoiler, it ain't going to work.
Traces of police.
Our policing comes from Britain.
No.
Yeah, the first police.
Armed groups of white men were slave patrols down south.
They were doing that, but that's not where policing originated.
Yes, that
policing
is for America. That is. Okay,
I know that's a Nicole Hannah-Jones idea. It's false.
No,
and now they're on to arguing about Thanksgiving.
The holiday was celebrating getting along with Native people.
But what happened was not getting actually along. If you look back at the history.
Well, okay, then object to the history of America then. The holiday.
Yes, but imagine you create a holiday around any other major incident.
Oh my God.
Perhaps Native Americans are, and perhaps if you had a relationship with any Native American, you might understand that, wow, this could be offensive. No, they can enjoy eating turkey, but perhaps they're offended that people try to pretend.
I submit there's not a single person in this country who hates Thanksgiving except Francesca.
And back to fighting about policing. It's almost like these two are married.
Our ideas are clearly.
No, I don't think that reviewing, when we have somebody like Derek Chauvin who murdered a black guy simply because he was black and he was insane, I don't think that we should say we don't want to revisit the slave patrol connection to policing, because why are you fearful of this black man for no reason? You're just in fear because he's black. And so we have to make sure we examine those things and look at the history and say, after many of years when we've seen patterns, is there a dot to be connected here? And so nothing's wrong with a candidate trying to explore that.
Trying to explore what?
How the
Robbie is all like, say what?
Slave patrol may connect to the mindset of current day policing.
Policing in America, the first police department in America is in Boston, and it comes from British tradition. And that is where policing in America comes from. Yes, there were slave.
There were versions of policing before our police department was formed. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're called slave patrol.
Official police department in America.
What does that mean?
Is
if the concept of policing comes from slave patrol.
No, the concept of policing does not come from slave patrol.
Yes, it does.
And Robbie's going to give it one more try.
If policing is just doing violence against other people,
no, policing is capturing.
Not only does it not originate with slave catching,
it's capturing people who you think broke the law.
Okay,
people who broke the law happen to be all black.
You can say policing.
What?
That's not true.
That's what was happening in the slave patrols.
Well,
they broke the law for wanting their freedom.
If policing is just using violence against someone else, then I guess the Native Americans invented it because they were here already doing violence against their other groups. Do we call that policing? Obviously not. When we refer to policing in America,
go back to making the Native Americans the bad
sheriffs, and because you.
So much nonsense in that.
I can't believe somebody just paid this woman to be on the air. Jesus Lord, they could pay me instead.
Well, sorry, I just want to let the audience know that was an excerpt from a 12-minute piece. And they go on for an hour every day on different topics. So not everyone is a whirlwind like this, but there usually is at least one every day. So it's a great show to watch. Anyway, so
and you know, if this brilliant woman wants to connect the slave patrols, yes, the slave patrols were real. Nobody's doubting that. Nobody's disputing that. If you want to connect the slave patrols to the modern day police, well then let's really go deep into that and connect the Democratic Party with slavery, with the old Democratic Party, with the modern day Democratic Party, with the new identity politics, which is nothing but racism. Let's make the connection. If you're so interested in making historical connections, let's make them. I'm fine with that. It's okay. You want to say slave patrol, modern day police, clear connection. Well, like we could say the same thing with the Democratic Party. Let's do it. I'll be fine with that. But don't start with your damn nonsense and the selective damn nonsense and then start to talk about, oh, Thanksgiving is such a terrible thing, blah, 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 stuff like that. Or it's always, we want to go into history. We pick and choose what we want out of history. And then we find something in the present day But Thanksgiving is not the same thing as it was back then anyway. But we want to have a day for family and be thankful about being alive and being thankful about having a family. That's what Thanksgiving is to me, right? And I'm sure it is to a lot of other Americans. But there's this fool want to say, oh, the Native Americans, this and the Native Americans. Fine, you want to make all this historical connection? Let's please just start. Let's start. Let's talk about slavery. Let's talk about Jim Crow. Let's make all the historical connection. Let's talk about the civil rights movement, where every person who was opposing Martin Luther King was a Democrat. Let's talk about all these historical connections. You want to talk them? Let's talk them, please.
Yeah. Well, Leon, it's funny because there was so much in there, but it's really a great opportunity just to dissect the thinking of a DSA type person, right? And
Yes.
that was
Yes.
an excellent exchange. But one of the things that I did want to, so I did have I kind of wanted to take a slightly deep dive on the slave police thing, but I did want to just say one thing in defense of the DSA person, and it's not really a defense of the DSA person, but I kind of align on the position in the sense that why do we need government to establish all these holidays, right, for us? I mean, because this is the point. It's like putting up statues and all these other things, right? I mean, clearly this woman doesn't like Thanksgiving. There's a whole bunch of other people who don't like Thanksgiving. Why do we need the government to tell everybody, thou shalt all celebrate on this day the thankfulness between pilgrims and Indians, whatever the thing is, right? I mean, why can't we all just do that without government, right? I mean, if it's something, I mean, think about it. We all go, or many of us go to church on a Sunday, right? And the government doesn't tell everybody that you have to go to church on a Sunday and that Sunday is church day. In fact, a lot of people now have alternate days that they go to church. Some people do it in the middle of the week and other things like that. So, this idea that you have to have government organize all these things for people. Now, that's not where she's coming from. She would very much want to organize. She just doesn't like Thanksgiving. But at least from a libertarian perspective, I do kind of feel like, why do we need all these special days that government is organizing to say these days are important for this reason? I mean, it's just like, well,
I think, Jason, you should make very clear you're not aligning yourself with this woman. Because she is not talking about making government smaller. She's not by making hating all of these holidays and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because I'm sure if you ask her about Juneteenth, she's gonna tell you how much. Oh God, I love Juneteenth. Let's have plenty Juneteenth. I am sure she will tell you that. So it's not that she's talking about. So you gotta make it clear now. Okay. So I don't think you're aligning yourself with this woman in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you have a position about government action in our private lives, which is a legitimate point. This woman is not talking about that. She's just talking about she don't like this particular holiday because of her distorted view of history, which is a different point from the libertarian view about government and its actions and the many ways it interferes with our lives, which to me is a valid point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of all the holidays, I mean, I don't have anything against Thanksgiving. I think it's kind of a fun holiday in a lot of ways. It's just, why do we need government to decide
to tell us that?
Yeah, like you're saying, this is not her position at all. Her position is just not liking Thanksgiving.
Yes, right.
So I don't want to leave any confusion there. Yes. But this is the irony of these people, right? I mean, they don't like it when government doesn't go their way, right? When it picks a holiday or a statue or whatever the hell it is that they don't like. But then their answer is they just want to force a different one on you. It's not about government power in there. They just want to. They just have a different preference. Is all. So yeah.
Yes.
Well, anyway, so that's that point. But getting onto the police thing, because I think that one is, a more serious, challenge that is being made by a lot of people, and so I think it's worth at least a tiny bit of debunking and exploring Robbie's point. But I mean, here's an article from AEI and a few others, this American Enterprise Institute, but there's other organizations as well that have poked a lot of holes in the 1619 Project, which is what they were getting at there, these slave patrols. And Encyclopedia Britannica is another place you could just go to and look at the history of policing in the West, right? And go to U.S. policing. And not once in the entire I don't know how many pages. It's ridiculously long here. Let me go back to because I already have that one set up for the United States. If we just drag this down, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So there's an awful lot to this. Not once do they mention slave patrols.
Well,
and
I am sure the lunatic is going to say that's just evidence of white supremacy, and they left that out. I bet you.
Well, but I think this is the problem, and I think Lindsay was kind of owning herself in there. She said that, you know, the reason for the policing is because it was against the law and black people were, you know, committing all the crime or something like that. She said, I don't, it did not quite make sense what she was saying, but she started to hit on the point, and that's that. Look, if these people were doing that in the South, these things that weren't actually official police departments, but they were this government compulsion apparently to participate in catching runaway slaves, you know, in the South. And the issue is that the government had a law, and it's a terrible law that says people can own other people, right?
Yes.
And so if the government has a bad law, guess what? They're going to have police that are going to enforce it, right? And
Yes.
it's any law. It's not whether or not somebody was a slave or not. It's anything. And this is the whole
Yes.
point. I mean, her argument ignores the fact that, you know, we've had police for thousands of years in different cultures. And that's exactly what this, you know, Encyclopedia Britannica goes to. And what Robbie Suave said is absolutely true. You know, New York and Boston were some of the
Boston.
first
Yeah.
police departments. Yeah, and they were set up to be similar to the English police departments, and they had to do with they were in trade centers, so they they were essentially trying to protect their ports and other things like that. This is, you know, not about some, you know, just horrifying DSA fantasy about how everybody's a racist.
That's right.
You know, but again, what would the solution have been? Don't have those terrible laws, and then you
Yeah.
won't have police enforcing those terrible laws, right? I mean, you know, that
Yeah.
to me that goes back to Mr. Mises, right? You know, constrain government, and you won't
Constraint.
be having
Yes.
government, you know, policing these terrible laws. So, but yeah. Anyways,
Valid
so,
point.
yeah.
Valid point. Valid point. I think.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, you have to give Van Mises some real credit here. Is that at the end of the day, we need to keep government in check. That's what we need to do. This is how we'll have our liberties, and this is how we have successful societies. Because at the end of the day, all of these societies where government have become so large and and overbroad, they eventually collapse. They eventually do. They collapse into their own selves. The Soviet Union did. China may do so, but China is trying to break out of it with some capitalism, some capitalistic changes in their society. But the weight of the government eventually crushes the liberties and freedoms of its citizens, and they always end up in the dustbin of history, i.e., the Soviet Union, and there are more to come. If you look at Greece, it is the same thing. Greece was once a very successful nation, but the socialists came in, and the weight of all their rules and regulations and their crushing of liberties bear down so badly upon the citizens of that land that Greece is now a wonderful place to visit, but is virtually a third world nation. They're begging us, well, they used, at least they were, begging the IMF, which is funded mostly by us, and the German government, I guess, to bail them out of their damn nonsense. So it is, at the end of the day, we must keep government in check. We must, if we are to have a successful society.
Yeah. You know, the best way to defund the police is to simply have a lot less laws to enforce. And then, you know, that should be the goal. That's not what Democratic Socialists of America are for, right? They want a whole bunch of laws. They just, you know, they're not making the connection that if you have less laws and more freedom, then you're going to wind up having less police action. You won't need as many police out there, you know.
Yes.
You know, anyways, yeah, that's you know, that's the point I think Mises is trying to make. But
Indeed.
anyways, I think we've about reached the end of our show, unless you had some other object. I know Lindsay said so much you know, crazy stuff there at the end. Oh, you know, one thing she did also say, she was addressing George Floyd, since we were talking about this Corey Ruiz again.
Yeah.
And again, she said that it was all out of fear of a black man. There's no evidence of that. Not once
Exactly.
did anybody
Right.
ever say anything happened to George Floyd because he was black. It was
Exactly.
literally,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, the guy was in the process of committing a crime. The store called him because they'd just gotten a counterfeit bill from him, and
Yes.
then they find that the guy is on substances, and then they try to put him in the car at first, and
I
then
can't
he
breathe. I
screams
can't
that
breathe.
he can't breathe, and
I
he's
can't
trying to
breathe.
resist going into the car, so they put him on the ground, and you know, but he was screaming he couldn't breathe in the car. Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is, you know, why? Because he'd overdosed. Right.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the system. You know, but it's just nuts. And these people in the media constantly trying to reframe these stories, you know, and it just absolutely, you know, horrifying. But I mean, that's what she was literally doing right there in
Yes.
that whole ridiculous screed on policing that she was doing. So, yeah.
And this is the point I was trying to make earlier. The mainstream media is one of the great dangers in our society. They take incidents like this, whether it's George Floyd or whether it's Corey St. Louis Ruiz or whatever his name is, and they make them into this horror thing that, you know, oh God, these racist white police trying to kill black men. And and if you go look at the facts of this matter, it is nothing but damn nonsense. We're gonna have incidents like this. There's no doubt about this. We have a police force that is what, 70% white, I think, whatever it is, and we have blacks overrepresented on criminality. What do you think is going to happen? We're going to have more interactions between white officers and black criminals. So there's just no way to get around that's a statistical fact. There's no way to get around it. But yet we have the media trying to tell us, trying to push this down our throats, that is white supremacy that is causing these police officers to keep on this war on the black man.
Yeah.
What do we end up with? We end up with the summer of love, or we end up with this nonsense that is going on in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, that is not to say that whenever there's a police shooting, that is not to say we should not investigate these things.
Okay.
I think we need complete transparency. I think we want to make sure that the police officer is justified in firing his gun. But I think we have to give police officers a little bit of leeway to act when they are on the streets. In this particular case, we had a police officer we know that was injured, and we know the police and we know the person had a knife. We know that. Nobody disputes that. So what is the police officer supposed to do?
Well, and that just goes to the point. There is no perfect policing, you know, and I think
Exactly.
early on in the show. And so once you create that situation where you're in a melee with police and you pull out a knife, I mean, if that's not a justified shoot, I don't know what is.
What is exactly?
You know, if you're going to second guess that, then, you know, now maybe if you had a video that showed that, hey, you know, the guy was 50 feet away with the knife or something else like that, you know, and even then, though, I mean, you still have to ask certain questions like, is he he may be 50 feet away from the policeman, but is he 50 feet away from everybody else? I mean, you know, that this is, you know, so there's a lot of complexities that go into these, you know, questions. And is he, you know, if he's got a deadly weapon and he is, you know, and he's shown that he's willing to use it and he could maybe get into a crowd, you know, I mean, that's not a good thing, right? I mean, there's times when it's just not about necessarily protecting just the policeman's life, but it's protecting other people's lives around too, right? I mean, this is, so yeah, yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if you had any last thoughts, Leon, but otherwise, I think that pretty much is a wrap for tonight. So.
I think so, yes. I think so, yes.
Well, thanks so much for watching, and until the next time, think about what you can do in your community to keep it from turning into Madison, Wisconsin. or San Francisco, California, or any one of a number of Bluetopian hellholes. They're coming from your liberty, and if you don't do something to defend it, you may not have it in the long run. So do what you can in your community to make a difference. And until next week, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.